What should a scalable marketing function look like for a B2B SaaS company at different stages of growth is a question I often hear. Typically, marketing can be viewed in three main functions. There's product marketing, which tends to think about messaging of the product, how to support sales, other parts of the organization, and selling, as well as pricing, packaging, competitive intelligence, win loss, and a number of other things that product marketing would do. Growth marketing or demand gen marketing, which is thinking about how to acquire customers, a lot of times how to retain them as well, developing the programs, the digital marketing, digital campaigns, et cetera, that's needed to support that, as well as how to measure it. So oftentimes marketing operations as well. And corporate marketing, which is thinking about corporate communications, maybe analyst relations, public relations, PR, media outreach, et cetera, is done there. Those three functions are, depending upon the stage of your company, are going to have be represented differently. The earlier stage of the company, the more these functions will be consolidated. And the later the stage of the company, the more they will be delineated out with increased specialization. So for instance, for product market fit companies, which are typically early stage, you may not even have a true marketing department at all, right? It could potentially be fulfilled by other members of the organization. Maybe there's somebody in product, maybe it's the founder of the company. But if you do have somebody in marketing, usually it's a single person, right? And it's somebody who should be, no matter whether it exists in another department or it's somebody who's a dedicated marketer, somebody who's a generalist. They can wear multiple hats to be able to perform all different facets of marketing. And typically, someone who's good at messaging, right, positioning, communicating, thinking about how to acquire customers creatively and being able to measure that. So in other words, product marketing plus some demand gen are oftentimes the most needed at that early stage of growth. If it's more of a product-led, growth-driven company, that profile changes a little bit. They need to understand a little bit more about how to drive growth-oriented programs. They're good at experimentation, iterating quickly, et cetera, as opposed to somebody who maybe is an enterprise-focused sales motion going on, where they're going to need to support a direct sales team and be able to do messaging and positioning and drive programs, perhaps in a more account-based way of doing things. Again, fundamentally different approaches depending upon the go-to-market motion. For scale to fit market companies or companies that are scaling well beyond product market fit, having somebody who understands marketing and how to create the function as a repeatable and measurable and scalable process is going to support the growth of the company is super important. They need to be able to know how to build a team and help manage that team and be able to do proper planning with the rest of the organization. So it continues to be about acquisition and retention, but it's also goes well beyond that. That acquisition and retention piece that was so important in the product market fit stage is still important, but now it's expanded. Other skills are much more important, including being able to build out that team of specialists that you may need to bring in or you will need to bring in. In a PLG driven company, this would be someone who's more focused on growth and acquisition, while in an enterprise sales motion led company should be adding additional specialists to the team who can focus on demand gen, product marketing, and PR and corporate marketing, a little bit more of a traditional model. Balancing short-term execution or building a long-term sustainable marketing strategy is also very important. So how do you do that? I think making sure you understand your go-to-market motions before you actually make hires is super important, because the last thing you're going to want to do is not hire the right person who doesn't have the right skill set to support your go-to-market motions, whether it's PLG, enterprise sales motion, et cetera. Particularly also for the stage of your company too. That's very important as well. You want somebody who is comfortable perhaps being in a smaller company that hasn't quite figured out go-to-market fit. A very different type of person than somebody who might be in a more mature organization, large global enterprise sales focused company, for instance. You need to make sure you have a good, thorough hiring process. So that's very critical. I think making sure you understand what jobs need to be done by this person has to be delineated, right? And be very clear on what that means. And then developing a scorecard of those skills that can then be shared with others across the organization during the interview process so they can focus on specific elements of that skill set that you're looking for. So not necessarily involving everybody to ask general questions on everything, ask them to specialize in the process so that you can drill in on specific pieces of what you're looking for and be very intentional in the hiring process. So what metrics or outcomes should be the focus of marketing? Those parameters that we talked about for product market fit companies are around customer retention are super important as well for any company overall. Specifically, other measurements of customer health that are important, as well as overall health of the company that marketing needs to be concerned with, is net revenue retention or net dollar retention, as it's called, right? So that is a measurement of revenue given to over a period of time, which includes upsell and cross-sell, meaning how much stickiness you have with your customers. So that's an important measurement as well. And that's directly tied into the other two metrics I talked about around revenue retention as well as customer retention. Beyond that, there are other important company health measurements that marketing needs to be concerned with, such as growth opportunities of the company, such as the TAM as well as the SAM. What is the market opportunity, the total addressable market, the serviceable addressable market that the company can address, so that marketing can start to think about strategically, working with the rest of the organization, how do we further grow the company? What strategies and tactics are we going to need as a marketing team to support company goals and be part of that strategic conversation? Specific metrics that are important from a marketing perspective include customer acquisition costs, right? So it's a total amount of money that it costs to acquire a new customer, which includes marketing and sales, making sure that we have that as low as we possibly can, as well as customer lifetime value, which is another important measurement, which is the total amount of revenue that a customer is expected to generate in their relationship with you as a customer. A good marketer will understand that for the company, as well as how marketing is impacting those numbers. So sales and marketing, one of the most important things you need to do as a revenue leader, which a marketing leader is, along with salesperson, customer success, product person in the organization, is to set up a data model, which is part of your revenue architecture. So in other words, how are you going to track and measure prospect, from the point of when they interact with you? So through a session, usually it's through digital interactions or perhaps it's at an event, right? So very early stage, whether you call that a session or even if it starts to move towards a lead, whatever you end up calling that. And as they progress through the classically what we've called a funnel, but I like to think of it in terms of a bow tie, right? The left side, the acquisition funnel, all the way through to close. And then through the right side of the bow tie, which includes customer retention. So how do you measure how you're able to upsell, cross-sell to those customers and grow that revenue stream? So having that clearly defined with your go-to-market leaders and ideally a revenue operations person that can help architect that out and measure it, and more importantly, report on it, and then work with the go-to-market leaders on how to make changes depending upon the insights that you're getting is super, super critical. So I state that up front because some of the metrics that come out of that, and we start to think about that left side at the very top of the bow tie, or top of the funnel, as we classically say in our funnel speak, are things like what's the sheer number and total number of leads and MQLs created as defined by the different stages that you might have defined as part of that data model. Lead conversion, so number of leads and MQLs that actually convert to an opportunity. So that's basically total number of leads divided by MQLs over a period of time. Another important metric from there includes the number of opportunities and deals created. So the total number of deals created in X period of time, which is super important to understand as well. Then we start to think about, okay, great. As you start getting further along in that bow tie or deeper in the funnel, we start to look at things like deal conversion. How many deals have won? What's that total number of deals won divided by total number of deals created, right? And over a period of time. Close one deals, total number of close one deals in a certain period of time. So how many of them were actually won? How many were closed, for instance? And then what's the average deal size is also an important metric. And then, of course, total revenue. What's the total amount of ARR that was actually generated from a particular deal or over a period of time in total, in aggregate? And understanding the average length of a deal too is a super important thing to keep track of. So those metrics had to do with the actual data model. So taking a look at that marketing influences and the whole go-to-market team influences across the board. But other ones that are very specific, I would say, to marketing, or at least because they are at the very top of the funnel or at the really early stages of the bow tie, include things like website traffic and traffic sources, for instance. That's also an important metric for marketing. So measuring the number of visitors to the site, for instance, is something that we're going to want to understand. And then where is it coming from? Is it coming from organic search, paid ads, referrals, social media, et cetera? Engagement metrics is also something else that we're going to want to have a look at. So how much are customers engaging with particular pieces of content, whether it's a case study, blog posts, and then being able to see how they're converting. And when we say converting, what we mean by that is, click-through rates, time spent on the site, how many downloads, which is a good indicator of conversion, for instance, as well as social media interactions or email and open response rates that we might get as well. So efficiency is another important element of marketing measurement. Every marketing leader should be thinking about how efficient am I with the dollars that I'm actually spending. So in other words, what is the cost of a lead that I might generate? So having clear understanding of that and doing what you can do to try to drive that number down to keep the cost as low as possible so that you're being as efficient as possible with the money that you have. What is the return on investment from your marketing dollars overall? So, or from a particular campaign. So this is the total revenue generated from a marketing campaign, as well as marketing as a whole, relative to its cost, is another super important thing to measure. Otherwise, other measurements that I think are critical, around different functions include brand awareness. So taking a look at sentiment factors by taking a look at how familiar potential customers are with your brand. It's mainly qualitative ways to do that. Referral, word of mouth, how many referrals are you getting? And if you're in a PLG model, taking a look at things like trial to paid conversions, for instance, how many of those have actually converted, or even looking at going from one edition of a product, a free edition, to a paid edition, and then if it's a paid edition to a more expensive edition, even one beyond that, understanding what does that entire conversion process look like and what is happening there, why is that happening? An important thing to do is audit your marketing process to identify gaps and inefficiencies is very important. So how do you do that? You can either do it internally or externally, but in other words, bring somebody in from the outside to actually do that for you. And what you want to do is to think about certain elements of your marketing program that you've identified as being important, and then be able to benchmark that against historical data that you might have, or qualitative or quantitative data, that is, or industry qualitative or quantitative data. For instance, making sure that you understand your buyer, your ICP, is super important. Understanding your go-to-market motions, making sure that those are all clearly articulated. Is company and product positioning and messaging completed? What state is that in? Making sure you get clarity on the brand, understanding the state of the competition. Do you understand that? Do you have clarity on the goals? What are the company goals? Have you defined them? Are their marketing goals clear as well? And then is revenue architecture in place, your data model, for instance, to be able to measure all of the customer acquisition and retention activities that are actually going on? And then being able to understand performance across that data model, including by channel as well, is super important. So making sure that a system is in place to support that. And the maturity of your processes as well, planning processes, budget processes, is that clear? Are dollars being spent and allocated efficiently? What does that look like? And then looking at your demand gen programs, for instance, depending upon the go-to-market motion, what does content look like? Or the types of programs that you're going to need to have in place, are they clear?